Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good evening, it's 11 o'clock. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. Prime Minister Liz Truss is due to hold bilateral talks with world leaders at the UN General Assembly in New York on Wednesday. Ms Truss has admitted that negotiations for a post-Brexit free trade deal with the US won't restart for years. President Joe Biden stalled trade negotiations after expressing concern that the Northern Ireland Protocol could damage the peace process. Downing Street says the UK and France will enhance cooperation on energy to cut costs for households. The Prime Minister and French President Emmanuel Macron have made this agreement while underscoring the importance of working together to end reliance on Russian energy and strengthen energy security. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres took aim at energy companies as he addressed the General Assembly, accusing them of claiming huge profits while people and the planet pay the price.
It's high time to put fossil fuel producers, investors and enablers on notice. Polluters must pay. And today I'm calling on all developed economies to tax the windfall profits of fossil fuel companies. Those funds should be redirected in two ways: to countries suffering loss and damage caused by the climate crisis, and to people struggling with rising food and energy prices.
Well, the UK Prime Minister says Russian President Putin must leave Ukraine and pay proper recompense for his invasion before he can ever return to the international fold. It follows comments Liz Truss made earlier saying the UK's security cannot be jeopardised for the sake of cheap energy. Ms Truss, who's pledged at least £2.3 billion in military aid to Ukraine next year, says the West must continue to stand up to Russian aggression. She and world leaders will discuss the war at the two-day event in New York. Western leaders have condemned plans by Russia to hold referendums in 4 Moscow-held regions of Ukraine. The Kremlin says voting will be held this coming weekend. The deputy head of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, says the outcome of the votes would be irreversible. Ukraine and the West say they'll not acknowledge any vote or outcome. Vladimir Putin is expected to make a rare address to the Russian nation on Wednesday. More than 200 young Muslims surrounded a Hindu temple in Smethwick, that's West Birmingham, this evening, as tensions that brought violence to Leicester appear to have spread to the West Midlands. Organisers of the protest say it was launched in response to a decision by the temple to invite a controversial speaker to an event there. It comes after tensions involving mainly young men from sections of the Muslim and Hindu communities saw unrest on Saturday night. Police said 25 officers and a police dog were injured, with 47 people arrested. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's over to headliners.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Welcome to Headliners. Joining me tonight as we resume normal news coverage under our new king.
Our two top comedians, both of whom I look up to almost as though they were majestic themselves. Leo Kearse, Ben Norris. Good evening, gentlemen. One known for his comedic talent, the other is just really tall. Anyway, no, that's not true.
Well, one of us not known for their comedic talent.
You've slumped in the chair in order not to... Ben is absolutely rigid back. So let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We start with the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail reads, "Freedom begins with tax cuts." Hard to know whether that is intended ironically on Liz Truss's recent fiscal announcement. The Daily Telegraph leads with Putin set to declare occupied land part of Russia. That's a slightly dubious précis of his intentions, and sweeping tax cuts in Prime Minister's sights. The Independent reads, Truss and Biden clash over tax cuts for the rich. The Guardian leads with Biden rejects Prime Minister's embrace of Reaganite tax policies, and Russia plans votes to tighten grip on Ukraine. The Financial Times leads with Truss signals profound shift in policy with defence of tax cuts, as she states that breaks for the rich are not unfair. And another nail in the coffin for SPACs, as backer Pally Happy Tyre fails to find target. I'm sure that makes sense to FT readers. The Mirror reads, thoroughly modern monarchy. Charles promises slimmed-down version of coronation amid cost of living crisis, and it will be inclusive and reflect the whole country and the Commonwealth. And the Daily Express leads with public backs king over slimmed-down monarchy. The strong support for cutting down number of working royals. They seem quite intent on detaching themselves from that obligation. And Truss vows tax cuts to get Britain on the move. And Holly and Phil devastated over Queen Q row. Well, of course, now they are. Anyway, finally, the Daily Star leads with Q, do ya think you are? Holly and Phil deny pushing in at funeral. 27,000 signed petition to get TV couple axed. And those were your front pages. So, kicking off with Wednesday's Telegraph, and our new Prime Minister has a fiscal statement. Ben, have you understood it?
I mean, I think I have. Liz Truss has been talking about tax cuts, and I think, average people probably thought, oh, tax cuts, that would be good, until they realise that they're not tax cuts for average people. It seems that they are mostly for...
the most hated segment of society, in fact.
Well, the top earners. I mean, are they hated? I don't know.
The bankers. The bankers are generally perceived to have got away with everything that's gone wrong since they trashed the economy in 2008. They remain aloof from the
I mean, they still get booed in comedy clubs, don't they, when they pop up, but...
The Harry Enfield Question Time spoof, remember that? The bankers, the bonuses, the bankers, the bonuses. It's a common refrain.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, I probably don't... it's very likely I don't understand the whole world that bankers work in, but it seems that I don't think they're doing too badly even with a cap.
I'm quite in favour of lowering tax cuts, corporation tax, anything that suppresses enterprise, that muffles the urge to get ahead, but I'm not sure this is.
Well, it's not just bankers who are going to get a tax cut. Other people will get a tax cut as well, but obviously this is the sort of newsworthy tax cut, so it gets pulled out. But this will actually make sure that London remains competitive for international finance. Okay. Although, I'd actually question whether that's necessary, because the reason that bankers want to live here isn't so much, the pay. It's so they can send their kids to the right schools and make the right connections and dine in the right restaurants.
And also, of course, because following Empire and the successful maintenance of the Commonwealth, the City of London has a number of secret underground tunnels that go all the way under the Atlantic, all the way to various tax havens, and so on.
There are a lot of conspiracy theories as well.
There are.
Oh, right, that was a metaphor.
There are significant advantages the city has over others.
I think you can get you can find tax havens. You can get access to tax havens from other places such as the Bahamas, and in fact, you might even be in one if you go and live there.
But their options are basically Frankfurt, aren't they? Nobody wants to live in Frankfurt.
Yeah, or Paris, New York. There is a bit of competition between those cities to attract finance, because obviously these people pay a lot of tax, especially with IR35 and all these these rules that have come in that mean that high earners have to actually pay tax instead of paying themselves, loans or dividends or whatever. So yeah, but I mean, banking there's some sort of questionable social utility to a lot of their operations, high frequency trading and stuff like that. And also, there's no sign of an exodus of bankers. And also bankers, it's like being a fisherman. Fishermen will always have loads of fish. Their pay isn't commensurate with what they do.
If they didn't leave after Brexit, I mean,
I just think they can have ways of not paying tax even if they're...
They will find their way around it. There's a certain amount that you start to earn and then you can afford accountants and suddenly they're... that's kind of the breakthrough point, isn't it?
I think they're a long way above that. But no, I mean, the tax rules have been overhauled, so I mean, I think it's affected us.
On to Wednesday's Guardian now, with their take on the recent Leicester violence. Leo, apparently it's the far right that are to blame.
So, yeah, this is, I mean, you've got to laugh. It's a very serious issue, but so Claudia Webb, who's the MP for Leicester East, still, even though she was convicted
Not sure if she's still the Labour MP, I'm not sure about that.
No, she's independent
now,
but
right,
she's still the MP for Leicester East, so she's lost the Labour whip. But she refused to stand down as an MP, which she should have done, because she threatened someone with an acid attack. She says the Leicester violence
didn't follow through.
She threatened she said that the Leicester violence could spread beyond the city. I mean, it certainly will if she gets involved and starts.
Well, it's got to Birmingham already, I think, isn't it? Is that we've got a bit of footage of it?
I think it's spread to eastern Ukraine as well, and we've got some footage. So Claudia Webb has said that this comes down. This violence between Muslims and Hindus is because of extreme right-wing extremists.
Apparently, the story is that they go online and they kind of like goad from both directions.
So right-wing extremists are goading, are going on Facebook and goading this to happen. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some other issues, like maybe we've imported dramas from other countries because this happens in India.
Didn't it start with cricket?
I heard it started with cricket, which is, to be fair, far right as far as I'm concerned.
Well, to be honest, it's the most interesting thing that's ever come out
since the ball tampering, which funnily enough. But anyway, that was I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, it kind of clashes with the royal funeral. A couple of days ago, it felt like it was a sort of bit of the old and the new. But actually, it could easily get exaggerated, couldn't it, in terms of importance? These things, little flair.
No, I've been following this for a while, not on mainstream media, which has completely ignored it because obviously it's being done not by white people. I mean, if it was white football hooligans doing it, oh my God, the Guardian would be in uproar about it. As it is, they're trying to use some sort of mental gymnastics to blame it on white football hooligans.
City United, they'd be going, that's actually some Muslims have been starting.
Well, yeah, it's a nonsense. I mean, it's as if like blaming this on right-wing extremists, as if Boko Haram are a spin-off of UKIP. It's an absolute nonsense.
I like that, Boko Haram. A subsidy.
Actually, Boko Haram, they had that song, A Whiter Shade of Pale, which sounds like a white supremacist song.
Back to cricket.
Yeah. Sticking with The Guardian, it seems our government is under a bit of pressure from our friend across the pond, Ben. This is Biden is not happy with Liz, is that right?
Yeah, the Global Fund, which is money raised to fight malaria, TB and AIDS and all sorts of horrible stuff like that in, I guess, the third world, we are holding off saying how much we are going to pledge.
Yeah.
It seems the government is yet to pledge exactly how much that the UK is willing to commit.
Is this a fund that America is particularly fond of or invested in, or is it more of a UN type thing? Because it seems that
I'll tell you as soon as I reread my notes.
Joe Biden seems to be particularly keen that we should do our bit for this one.
Yeah, we've been asked to pledge. We've been asked for a 30% increase in the amount we pledge, and I think previously we pledged £1.8 billion, which is quite a lot of money. It's a decent amount of money considering there's other things we've got to spend money on as well, and we've just cut taxes on bankers. So yes, it's a lot of money. But I don't know. All I hear day day in, day out is how evil Britain is, how evil colonialism and empire is. And it's like, well, if we're evil, why are we paying? Why are we doing all this good stuff? Why don't we live up to our evil?
The guilt fund.
Yeah.
I think maybe they called it the global guilt fund.
Is that what it is?
They get more or they get less from us then?
Right, one fund with guilt in a different spelling.
I don't know. I feel like this is it is quite money well. I mean, obviously there are limits, but it's money quite well spent, generally speaking, making the developing world remain habitable for as long as possible. That, just from our own point of view, that seems like quite a good investment, wouldn't you say?
Until we put it underwater.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's coming, isn't it? Obviously, But
I think, I don't understand the intricacies of these things, but my understanding is that it is in our vested interests to make sure, to sort of keep the other parts of the world as stable and healthy as possible, because everything comes back to haunt us if we don't.
But on the other hand, I don't necessarily want to have Joe Biden telling us where we put our charitable investments. I feel that that's a bit impertinent on his part, don't you?
And also a 30% increase. It just shows. I mean, this is why you should never give to charity. It's like when you start a direct debit with a dog's home or something. They're on the phone straight away. Oh, can you up your monthly? I used to get it from Amnesty. They're like, can you up your monthly allowance? It's like, why don't you ask somebody who isn't giving you 10?
When the first time that you get stopped by one of those fellas in the
chuggers,
and you kind of go, okay, what is it? Thinking, I've got a tenner on me. I'll chatting about this. And no, you've got to set up a direct debit, make a lifetime commitment, and then go home and undo it all at the computer. It can take half an hour, can't it?
And then get asked every 2 weeks if you'd like to give more.
Turning to Wednesday's Financial Times, an update on Russia's war in or on Ukraine, Leah, or their special military operation.
So NATO has accused Moscow of escalating its war on Ukraine after Kremlin allies in occupied territories have announced referendums to join Russia, and the country's parliament approved legislation that clears the way for military mobilisation so they could draft citizens into...
Got two things to say about that, but let's do the referendums bit first.
That's what I was going to do, Simon.
Sorry, mate.
Don't worry. I've prepared something to say about this. But basically they're rushing through these sham referendums in places that they've occupied in the east, in Donetsk and Luhansk.
Thank God we've never been involved in a sham referendum.
Don't bring that nonsense.
That was the will of the people.
It's the one place where we're dry on.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to make one happen in Scotland, but possibly with Russian interference. But anyway, but basically, he's trying to put these referendums through, make them ostensibly Russian territory, and
So, what's your feeling? Is it a sham? Is it, or is it actually likely to expose that there is some support in the demographic?
Well, funnily enough, there is some support in some of these places for Russia, and there's certainly some antipathy towards Ukraine and towards Kyiv, who as well as being seen as distant.
Russia,
yeah, exactly. And they see Ukraine as having forced this war to happen, but that doesn't mean that Putin's right to go in there and seize this land. So and it's really a sort of Putin's desperate because he could be about to militarily lose these areas as he has in the north and the east, and it also changes the legal aspects of this land. It would become Russian territory, so any attack by Ukraine wouldn't be liberating Ukraine's land; it would be attacking Russian's land, which would then ostensibly give him the sort of the excuse to escalate and use battlefield nukes. But it's interesting, the influence, this war, the way it's going for Putin, it's going very badly for Putin, and it's reduced his influence in former Soviet states who are now fighting amongst each other.
It's not a war, it's a special operation.
Special operation,
but it could become a war at this point.
We can rename
it.
Claudia Webb calls it a far-right white English football hooliganism.
Well, I think, there is some argument for that as well. The interesting thing, though, I've been reading about the mobilisation, not a huge amount, but I just saw this fairly well-informed Twitter thread. But I hadn't really considered this before. If you, under the Soviet Union, they maintained the infrastructure into which they could pour the conscripted forces at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But that is not cheap, to maintain officers, to maintain barracks, to maintain the supply chains. These things are extraordinarily expensive to maintain. And as soon as they became Russia rather than the Soviet Union, that was all got away with. So the idea that they can just mobilise conscripting young men is the easy part. How do you get them out there? How do you train them? How do you determine what they to go to?
But also it would lead to, I mean, the one thing that Putin's still succeeding at is domestic suppression. So he's really quelled any sort of demonstrations. But I mean, if mothers start seeing their sons being sent out, you know, it's going to. It hasn't really affected the Russian public so much yet. I mean, obviously there's some the economy's sort of not doing as well as it would. But if they start seeing their sons being conscripted and sent out there and sent back in body bags, that's going to really affect the public.
One of the other very dangerous things in Russia, of course, is just walking down the street and an oligarch landing on your head.
Yeah,
oligarchs
falls out of a hospital window.
They
don't walk too close to hospitals.
There's quite a few of them. Have you seen the list? I mean, it's an amazing amount of.
It's extraordinary. I don't want to say you have to admire his chutzpah, but there is something quite medieval about his approach to some of these little internal divisions. Well, I mean, what is your feeling? Is it 6 months, 9 months? I guess this war has been going on now. 7, 8, 9 months. I'm trying to remember. It was like late February, wasn't it? We were really braced for. We were all going, well, you know. Let's be honest, you know, plucky Ukraine, but it's... I mean, we've all been wrong-footed, haven't we? Is that...
Well, I think isn't it sort of like all of the other similar things where somebody has invaded somebody else's land?
Yeah.
They don't work out very well because people, when they're in their own country, fight much harder than they do when they're meeting up somewhere else.
It's clearly really easy to underestimate, isn't it? I mean, Putin's no...
It's an ideological difference as well because, I mean, the whole Russian autocracy is a command-led structure. So, you know, you can't do anything. If you do anything, you'll get into trouble if it's not what you've been told to do. It's like working for Haringey Council. So the Ukrainian people are fighting with much more mobility and agility and as autonomous units. So it's really the difference between Western liberal democracy and an autocratic regime. And we're seeing autocratic regimes calcifying under the weight of their own sort of command structures. You're seeing it in China right now, and it's actually given me a bit of hope that Western liberal democracy isn't over. I think the only threat to Western liberal democracy comes from within us.
I could quite agree, and I'm sure we'll be seeing examples of that later this hour. The Financial Times again, and looking towards Iran, Ben.
Yeah, this is this poor Kurdish Iranian woman who was arrested in Iran by the morality police.
Which I thought was like just a sort of silly term of abuse, but it turns out they really do have one of those. The morality police is like, oh, here they come, the morality. But no, they actually are.
It's not Sting they're talking about.
No.
This is a real organisation. But she was arrested because she was wearing tight trousers. And something awful happened. They say, I think she had a heart attack. And anyway, she died in custody. It's a terrible, awful tragedy.
But it's triggered quite a lot of protests and sort of solidarity, is that right?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of people have come out and, risking their own liberty, I suppose, by taking off headscarves and stuff and saying, we're not going to be told what we can and can't wear. And it does seem very sad that, all these, in this modern age, there are sort of men in positions of power telling women what they can and can't wear.
Well, they're not in a modern age, are they? I mean, that's the thing, It's,
but they were,
5,000, 2,000 years ago.
But you see photographs of Iran, in the 1960s.
Before it was Islamic, before it was an Islamic theocracy.
Yeah. And it was pretty groovy over there. But
it certainly was. But it's interesting, they're like cutting their hair off and stuff, aren't there? I've seen quite a lot of videos of some quite visceral sort of demonstrations, which is, I think there is maybe just enough of a little bit of a momentum that they might actually become too powerful to individually sort of pick off.
Yeah, you would hope so.
I don't know. You seem to be quite trusting in the sort of Islamic police, the Iranian police's account of the events. I mean, other accounts say that she was raped and beaten and killed, murdered by the police, and it wouldn't be out of character. A lot of similar things like this happen. I mean, they've got it written into their penal code that you can beat and murder people for breaches of the Islamic code. Incidentally, Islam is going to be Britain's biggest religion by 2050, so we'll see how that affects the penal code here. Maybe we'll be seeing some of this.
We've only got shopping to defend us. That's all for part one. Coming up, we have genderless high street fashion, ultra-high net worth individuals, well, Elvis, and how proof people were getting high 3,500 years ago. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio, and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, and I'm still joined by the comedy pairing that gave Morecambe and Wise a run for their money, Leo Kearse and Ben Norris. So let's dive back in onto the Guardian next, and the super rich. They keep getting richer.
Yeah, bit of good news. Bit of good news. The success of capitalism means that rich people keep getting richer, and the number of global ultra-high net worth individuals has hit a record high. So a report by Credit Suisse says that those with assets exceeding $50 million in total has gone up to 218,200 after a post-pandemic explosion of wealth. You can only assume they got second jobs as Deliveroo drivers or something like that. And yeah, a bit more information on that. The number of US dollar millionaires has increased by 5.2 million during 2021 to a total of 62.5 million. So that's how many dollar millionaires. And the Shorex, I don't know who that is, but a bank probably, said that the number of millionaires, this is quite snobby, I like this, the number of millionaires was becoming so large that it was becoming an increasingly irrelevant measure of wealth.
Well, there must be some truth even just by inflation as well, I suppose.
Millionaires used to get to feel like special people. Now they're just run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, I actually used to be able to buy a tropical island, and now you can't even get a garage. I looked it up on
Wikipedia to see what it used to be. In 1900, when the idea of a millionaire first started kind of becoming fashionable, it was worth about 30, 35 million now.
Right.
So still a bit below the ultra kind of level, but that's what you would have. That's what you have to have in order to have that impact on society.
Yeah.
Now that is quite rare, isn't it? 35 million.
Yeah.
I think, So that's really what there should be a word, because a billionaire, that's obviously like a ludicrous thing. That's like a tiny number of people. They're like kings and princes.
Yeah.
But a millionaire, the truth is probably some of us know millionaires.
Well, anybody who bought a house in the 90s is now a millionaire.
Anyone who bought a house in the 90s and hasn't divorced.
Yeah. Is that harsh? Is that stung? You're doing all right, are you?
I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's too early to say.
But you can't, just a millionaire now, you can't go around flashing the cash, just, you're not going to be like spending 50...
You'll run out pretty quick if you're getting a round in London. That's
right.
half of your million gone already.
Yeah. So do we feel, is it a bad thing, or is it just a source of envy and resentment. I mean, you were saying it's a proof that capitalism is working, right?
Yeah,
I
was only
the froth on the top of the glass.
I was only half being an idiot when I said that.
I think there's some truth to it.
No, but I think the divide has got a bit excessive now, hasn't it? There's the amount of excessive wealth at the top is huge, and now we've got people in food banks. Surely we could change the shape of the pyramid. Obviously, there's a pyramid, but it doesn't have to be like that. It could be a bit more like that.
But people say that about food banks, and I mean, I think it's just another. It's an example of largesse. It's not. No, it is. It's
What have the French got to do with it?
It's not an example of people starving.
It should be a large
everybody,
shouldn't it?
Everybody has got the median income has come up, so much, since in the last few decades.
I'm no trop, but I do have a bit of sympathy with Ben's point of view. When you see some of the things, I think in 1965, the average board executive owned roughly 35 times the average salary within his company, and now it's something like 3,000 times. I mean, they are absurdly well compensated, and they're not even that good at it half the time, are they? That's what rankles.
But the thing is, there's an unlimited labour supply, so you don't really have any bargaining power when there's unlimited labour.
Liz, are you going to save us from this? This is from The Guardian next. Androgynous fashion from Kenya. Ben, this is something we can all sort of feel a bit more is in our wheelhouse.
Sure. Apparently a growing number of Kenyan sort of fashion labels are embracing genderless fashion as a younger, more vocal generation calls for greater inclusivity and creativity in clothing design. So it's quite a major issue in Kenya, this, because sadly homophobia and transphobia are extremely prevalent.
There is David Icke.
Oh, right, yes.
Inspired boys.
So there's calls here in Kenya for more non-binary fashion, but I wonder what non-binary fashion is. It's described as genderless fashion, so I'm thinking the tracksuit.
There is quite a lot of that already, really, isn't there, to be fair? I mean, women have been wearing trousers for quite a while.
Yeah.
I suppose, is it just stuff that disguises the shape of the body, is it? The thing with the fashion industry is it's always like trying to demonstrate its bona fides, its moral, and it's just so immoral. I mean, it will do anything to sell clothes. Its models used to be heroin addicts, and it literally made that look chic, to have about 3% body fat and massive dark rings around your eyes to look as if you've been...
And it's made for pence in a sweatshop, or as close to a sweatshop as they can get, or by Uyghur slaves.
And they nick all their
government.
ideas from kids on the street who just invent stuff with a meagre budget and go to charity shops and cut things up, and they get all their ideas from that, and then it goes onto the...
I mean, talking of genderless fashion, you and I, probably not you, you're much younger than us, but remember the 1980s? Where there was, we had Boy George, didn't we, in the New Romantics?
Absolutely.
And there was an awful lot of...
And a lot of that started at the street level as well, didn't it? And then the next thing you know, Givenchy and Chanel have got people walking down the catwalk. It's an absolute... I despise the fashion industry, really quite
It's
strongly.
coming across.
Yeah. Not just in the way I choose to dress.
That's why you choose not to take part.
That's why you have a Panamanian tailor. His last...
Get yourself one good tailor and you can buy any jacket you want in Oxfam and have it made to measure, straight off the bat. It's a fantastic way to do it.
David Beckham wore a sarong, didn't he?
Yeah.
And what's so wrong with that? Come on.
He's had that in the back pocket for some time now. Lovely to see a bit of daylight on
sarong, mate.
Wednesday's Daily Mail now with a headline filled with GB News buzzwords. This one.
So as Kenya progresses with its sort of politics, we're regressing. So feminist academics have told how they're self-censoring because their views on trans issues have led to them being overlooked for jobs, physically barbed or even removed from events, and facing a continuum of hell, that's their words, not mine, from online trolls who have made death and rape threats. One academic said, "It feels so alienating because academia should be about discussing and exchanging ideas, and it's not. It's not in our context. And yet, academia should surely require free discussion. And it's bizarre that the death threats against these women who are described or dehumanised as TERFs or whatever, the death threats are accepted, but anybody stating biological facts about chromosomes or anything like that is seen as some sort of right-wing ultra-Nazi. And we saw just a couple of days ago at a rally, a Labour Party advisor screaming fascist at
in my hometown.
At a baby.
Yeah. Oh, you brought your
Ultra-Nazi.
baby along to be a fascist, have you? Yeah, to the dad who had him in a sort of papoose.
Yeah.
Upsetting,
She could identify a fascist.
I mean, there is something quite
specific.
specific about the trans row in this respect. There's been a certain fear that like the faculty in most of our universities has become more and more like a left-wing consensus. But you might be able to say, well, that maybe just reflects the kind of people who want to work at universities. Nothing very sinister. But the trans issue seems specifically to attract a kind of intolerance. Like, there's no discussion to be had here.
I think it's extremely sinister that people at universities aren't allowed to openly discuss ideas.
Yeah, no, it would be. But no, what I mean was, I think there's part of the chilling effect that has occurred at university until the trans thing that's come along is not so much that there's a deliberate attempt by the faculty to close down these ideas. It's that the students and everyone they're going through, and it's just a natural. It should still be resisted, and you should still assert your right to but it isn't like some weird agenda. I just feel with the trans thing, it's a tactic. It's an absolute tactic because they know that what they're trying to get over cannot withstand any kind of rational argument as it's traditionally been understood. So they just delegitimise the idea of argument altogether. And that's quite different from anything that's previously been, there's always this kind of ongoing row about what guest speaker the, sparsely attended Conservative club at university is allowed to get in. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the trans debate is, as I think I've said before, quite nuanced and complicated and often best avoided. But, the volume that comes from it seems enormous compared to the size of it.
Well, the size of the number of people who identify as trans,
I mean,
it's definitely weaponised for something more than making sure that their lives are any better, because if anything, it's making their lives worse, I think.
Oh, yeah, genuine transgender people, well, genuine transgender women, because I think trans men just seem to, escape the debate completely and just, are allowed to live their lives in society. But genuine transgender women bear the brunt of all the sort of opprobrium and don't instigate any of it. And it's these just lumpy blokes who say, I'm a woman, who are instigating all the issue. I mean, I think, fine, be trans, but put some effort in.
Moving on to that,
some of the ones that are screaming at TERF, and it's like, man, you look like me, but if I shaved less.
We have a follow-on from that, which is the World Rugby refuses to review trans player ban despite risk of legal action. This comes from the Telegraph, Ben, who seem to be quite committed to this issue, oddly. Slightly against the grain of their general political persuasion, but I've noticed they're really in on the rugby thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite a rugby fan, and I like to think not remotely transphobic, but I do see why World Rugby might have an issue with people who were born with a fair amount of testosterone playing such a physical game against people who were not born with the...
It kind of seems absurd to have to even pretend that isn't going to be obviously the overwhelming concern, and the presentation of it as a phobia. I mean, I just think it's extraordinary, this like co-opting of that word.
But can't we? I mean, I'm sort of semi-serious here, but can't we think about having trans sport?
Yeah.
So it could be a completely separate thing. We've got men's, we've got women's, and we have trans sport. I think it could be quite interesting.
Transport.
We've got that already.
We might even have a minister for it. That's all for part 2. Coming up, we've got the real reason work from home is such a hit, the TV scandal sparked from the queue for the Queen, and a niche chess cheating allegation. Niche, well used there. See you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners one last time. I'm still Simon Evans, they're still Leo Kearse and Ben Norris. Let us crack on. We have half of the stories to get through still with the final third, but we'll squeeze them in. Wednesday's Telegraph. Shouldn't these two have known better than to mess with the Brits and their queuing? Ben, this is...
It does seem incredible. Schofield and Willoughby famously now... well, they say they didn't... jump the queue. No. They said they were there, as journalists, and there was a kind of separate journalist space. But, it looked like to everybody else involved, like they just came in and jumped the queue.
Is that word that is used a lot in the last few years? Optics, isn't it? It's not good optics. Bad
not good optics.
Very poor optics. And that is all their job is at the end of the day, is optics.
One thing's for sure, Philip Schofield is going to get quite pressurised the next time he's in the post office, isn't he? Yeah. People are going to be keeping their eye on him sharply. Oi, Philip, get to the back.
I just want to borrow the pen. Nah, back.
I'm not here. I'm here as a journalist.
Oh, it's such a shame this has happened to one of our leading journalists. I'm sure he was going to get a Pulitzer Prize for his queue standing.
I mean, he's not writing a piece. What has he defined a tool or
I'll tell you
developed the notion of what the journalism amounted to?
I'll tell you what he's not. He's not good at coming up with excuses. He's had 4 days and they come up with this. Yeah. This is you jumped the queue. Just say, I jumped the queue. I saw an opportunity.
Every other context in public life, it's fine, isn't it? We all understand VIPs, they jump the queue to get into nightclubs, they have a little area in the hotel,
I think what made it really hard for both of them is that David Beckham didn't jump the queue. Yeah. So, there's a very high-profile person who 13
didn't jump the queue, didn't cheat on his wife over a 30-year marriage and then write a book, explaining that why he was really still...
He's probably got less in his diary, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Than Philip Schofield.
Well, I wasn't posh in the queue as well. I did feel bad about that. David was left standing on his own.
I think he was queuing for the whole family.
Right, OK. Like a microcosm of Schofield queuing for the whole nation.
Apparently there were 25 million people in that queue. So you can see why you might think, I'm going to try and get to the front of this.
I wish I'd done it myself now. Oh, well, never have another chance. On to Wednesday's Guardian. These archaeologists must have been ecstatic with this find, Leo.
Yes, so Israeli archaeologists have found traces of opium in 3,500-year-old pottery. Wow. So it was used in ancient burial rituals, they reckon. They said they don't know about its use in ancient time. We can only speculate what was done with opium. I mean, I should imagine people put it inside themselves to feel good.
Yeah,
that's a major use of it. And in fact, because it's quite an easy thing to just get inside your body in North Africa, in Morocco, they have this stuff called pavot, which is just poppy heads, and you grind them up and boil them, and then you turn it into this tea, and you drink it, and you feel amazing. It's great. All your problems with the world. Yeah.
I had a little bit on a Rajasthan, a camel trek, 3-day camel trek, and the guy gives it to you at the end of the evening when you're settling down around the campfire. He says this will keep the chill out. And you you just put it, you sort of burn it on the end of a cigarette. You sort of have,
You sure he didn't just say, let's chill out?
So, I mean, you smoke.
It turned out to be camel dung. He claimed it was opium.
So you're like, I'm smoking heroin here, and it's just camel dung. It's like you've been ripped off by a Glasgow dealer.
But it used to be used for all the great poets, didn't it? And most of the great music has been. It feels like it's gone out of our life a little bit lately. Opium.
Opium?
Well, you haven't been to Scotland.
I know. There's all the kind of deaths in America, but that's the nasty kind of slightly sordid end of it, isn't it?
Well, fentanyl.
Poetic use of it.
The major manufacturer of fentanyl, all the fentanyl in America, is China. So they're manufacturing it to destroy America, and it's the same with TikTok. They're using TikTok to destroy America culturally.
I was going to say that's how the whole
we did it.
thing.
Yeah. I will say though, this is quite interesting. It doesn't seem to have established whether it was part of a religious ritual or whatever. But we know Joe Rogan, right? The podcast host. He is fascinated. He has loads of guests on, at least one or two a month, who talk about new evidence that ancient religious rituals had a far higher, controlled substance element.
People have been taking drugs forever.
For a very long time, yeah. So I hope this develops, and as I say, I would quite like to see, the poetic use. I would have the sort of Philip Schofield, that excuse, but not as a journalist. I'm here as a poet.
I guess you could have the dealer saying, look, you can have some, you've got to prove you're going to do some poetry.
You've got to do some quatrains on in Xanadu. Wednesday's Times, don't do drugs, kids. Well, I'm just probably being forced now to reverse my...
Well, it's a good thing we're moving on to a completely different subject.
Yeah, different kind of drug altogether.
True. Basically, they've discovered that ketamine can ease depression, and not only that they showed they had a sort of test group. They gave them ketamine and then showed them pictures of people smiling, and that worked even better.
So you become very suggestive on ketamine.
Very suggestive because the brain becomes malleable. But it's interesting again for those of us that remember the birth of Acid House.
Right.
People were taking ecstasy and everyone was walking around with great big smiley faces on the T-shirt, and that had a very similar effect. Made people very happy, quite huggy.
Because for a long time I heard about ketamine and everyone went, oh, horse tranquilizer sounds terrifying, you just assume you just lie there slobbering. I saw a video recently on YouTube where it was under medical supervision and a bloke was given ketamine. I think it was an anaesthetic as much as an antidepressant. They were about to do something. I think they were resetting a bone and it was being done with blunt force. Do you know what I mean? That kind of, thing. And they went, right, are you ready? And he was like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And he was just like hilariously happy for about 2 minutes while you could see this like doctor, It was extraordinary. And he was really, it was kind of ecstatic, but it was also quite jolly. It wasn't weird and sort of.
You've got to feel a bit sorry for horses because for us, we get a great time. Horses straight to sleep.
Yeah, still got a long face on them.
Anyway, obviously don't try it at home, kids. But it's interesting how some of these.
Go out to a nightclub.
Some of these quite long disparaged, pharmaceutical options now are being re-examined. There's a big uptick in legitimising the magic mushrooms and all that.
Magic mushrooms are now being used officially in trials to treat depression, PTSD, and things like that.
Dosing, isn't it?
Well, and full-on dosing as well.
Yeah. Some of them say that it's like they have a virtually religious experience and nothing ever, it doesn't fall away again. They are permanently transfixed, which is, that's always the big thing. You assume you lose psychedelic drugs, you experience a taste of the religious life, but as it drains away afterwards, you're left with very little to build on.
But without hating your neighbours.
Yeah, that's right. You introduce cricket. The Independent now, and if the last article tells us anything, this study into British health shouldn't come as a surprise, Leo.
This is...
Diets.
Oh, yeah, here we go. So British diets are only slightly healthier than they were in 1990. So apparently there's this global score that scientists use to measure our diet and how good it is. And we're at 40.3 out of 100, which wouldn't be a good Uber score, and that's only 1.5 points higher than it was in 1990. So we're now eating more vegetables and nuts than we used to, but we're also consuming more red meat, sugary drinks and salt. And I've got an issue with this because red meat I don't think is bad.
It's healthy.
I think it's been proven to be good, and I think the grading of different foodstuffs has been proven to be wrong, and we don't need all this carbohydrate. We actually need red meat, saturated fat.
Totally agree with you. Red meat is good. I do think sugary drinks are awful. it's interesting they're saying we're consuming more of those, and yet that's despite them having put a massive tax on them, isn't it? That they put the sugar tax on the drinks, and Iron Brew has been forced to sort of...
People love sugar so much, they'll drink through the tax.
They'll drink more of it.
Yeah. They'll use their ultra-high net worth.
What's your budget, Ben?
Well, I'm a vegetarian,
You're a vegetarian, yeah.
You know, I haven't eaten meat since 1983.
Wow, that is a long time.
And it's never been easier to be a vegetarian or a vegan. Now you can go into any supermarket and see, let's be honest, some quite bizarre things like plant-based chicken. I don't know who wants that. I don't want plant-based chicken any more than I would want a leek and potato-based cat.
It is an odd thing, isn't it, how all vegetarian and vegan food in particular still has to reference the kind of modular forms of carnivore.
But that's only marketing companies thinking that that's what people want.
What would they say, though? What would you like to see, like a plant-based television or a plant-based, I don't know...
how come you never get people getting steak and trying to make it taste like broccoli? Yeah.
Because it would be silly.
A floret of bacon. So, on the whole, do we think this is a lot of nonsense? It's in The Independent, it comes from America, I think we can dismiss it, can't we? This is from the Daily Mail, and a method actor who'd actually put into practice and succeeded, Ben. Tom Hardy with his martial arts.
Yes, this is interesting, isn't it? Because he went to... a martial arts competition that was taking place in Milton Keynes, and he entered and got the gold.
Amazing.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that essentially quite a big Hollywood star would still have the need for such showing off.
Oh, you think you find that interesting, rather than that he is also good?
I mean, he got good because he learned how to do it training for a part where he was playing I think an MMA
He's not necessarily showing off in a massive way, though. He's in Milton Keynes.
It's Milton Keynes.
He's gone in under his own name, Edward Hardy.
True. Yeah.
So I think fair play to him.
I also realise that there's a vague chance that one day I'll meet him, in which case I should say, what an excellent thing he did. What a weird
hunger you have for constant affirmation, Tom.
I want to see Meryl Streep enter Cumberland Taekwondo.
I think it's quite good that Tom Hardy is actually sort of demonstrating that he maintains fitness between films, because there is always that thing, you look at their physique in the movies and you think that is amazing, but they have these trainers that get them ready for these roles, like Wolverine, right? And you can buy that specific exercise schedule, 12 weeks to Wolverine.
Can you buy the steroids as well?
Exactly.
I mean, he's admitted that steroid use was a big part of it, and they peak at the when they film.
I suspect you wouldn't be able to be a gold medal winner on steroids. I mean, it might not interfere, but it's not is it? It's not the whole thing.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. It's illegal for anyone. But what I mean is, he's not just demonstrating a physique that got him steroids gifted.
No, I think
he's demonstrated
he's definitely into that whole. He lives the part.
The big butch Tom. OK, moving on to the Times. The result of this survey will not come as a surprise, Leo.
Yeah, so there was a test done to see if a 4-day working week would be workable, if it would be successful. So they had a 6-month test period where people worked just 32 hours a week for the same amount of pay, which seems a bit unfair.
So what's given then?
9 out of the 10 companies that took part have said they're going to extend the policy. So basically found out that people can get all their work done in less time. But everybody knew that they were on a test. So they knew if they succeeded on this test, the companies would keep it going longer, if people were more productive. So everybody just worked like the clappers for this test period. And now that now that the companies are sort of embedding it and making it part of regular life, now everybody is going to kick back and have an extra day off a week.
I tell you who I feel sorry for, it's the people who work weekends, because they've now got to do a 3-day weekend to make up for the 4-day week.
Well, there is going to have to be something. It depends. Some businesses actually require people to be there, don't they? I suppose other businesses, if it's a 4-day week, it's a 4-day week and the office is shut at the weekend. But I don't understand. Are they saying they get as much work done in 4 days as they used to get done in 5?
Well, bear in mind, a lot of this will be like, local government and stuff like that. So it's not like they're doing half a day's work a week anyway.
If you have Friday off, if you work a little bit harder for 4 days, I think most of us would do it.
As you say, initially, I remember there was a thing years ago, like a study or an experiment where I think it was more in a factory, and they wanted to find out whether ambient lighting was important. So they raised the level of ambient lighting. It was brighter indoors, and it increased productivity by about 10%. 10%.
Right.
And then they went back down again. And then a few weeks later, they lowered ambient lighting by about 10% and it increased productivity.
So you've got to keep the lighting going up and down.
You've just got to keep changing things. You've got to just constantly keep people going, oh, this is nice. Oh, that's nice. It's quite people just like a little bit of variety.
Marriage as well.
Yeah, I think it might do. So you can stay a millionaire. Here is a typical story for the Daily Star, Ben. This is another workplace shenanigans.
Yeah, amazingly, with the increase in people working from home, a number of people have admitted, 47% of all remote workers have admitted they sneak off to masturbate during work hours.
Extraordinary. At least they sneak off, I suppose.
Most of them, although some have also admitted to having done so when they worked in the office.
And being caught.
Apparently the cleaning cupboard was a popular destination for the office.
But that's for cleaning. That goes against the whole essence of cleaning.
And also bad smell. It's not an erotic smell, is it?
You'd get a fetish for bleach after a certain amount of time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's really unsexy. I mean, there was that one bloke, wasn't there, who got caught doing it on a Zoom call. Was that an American politician or someone? Maybe a couple of people have been over the last couple of years.
Well, according to this headline, Brits working from home are masturbating on the clock. And so that's some reach they've got.
Yeah, that's it. But you've got to have a target, I suppose, haven't you? But I don't know. I mean, I suppose the stand-ups, it just doesn't occur to us, does it? But, we only work for 20 minutes.
Well, Louis C.K. managed to do it.
That's true. Fair enough. This is my favourite story of the night. I'm glad we reached it. It is the chess row from The Guardian. I think you've got this one, Leo, is that right?
Yeah, so there's a cheating row rocking the world of chess. So there's an American teenager who's been victorious against the world champion. So a fortnight ago, the world champion Magnus Carlsen pulled out of a tournament for the first time in his career. And then on Monday, he stunned the sport again by resigning a game after just one move. And both times, Carlsen was faced with the same opponent, this 19-year-old prodigy, American Hans Niemann. There are accusations that Niemann, this new teenage guy who's winning all the games, is cheating, and that explains why he's suddenly so successful.
Not just that he's cheating, though.
But there's all these theories going around about how he's managing to do it, and apparently he's using vibrating anal beads, which to me would be more of a handicap. I think trying to queen to king's bishop, that'd be more make it more difficult.
But also,
there could be signals being sent through the vibrate. Like remember the coughing colonel in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
To sort of like try and move out, and the beads either vibrate.
As you get over the right. There's a guy in the audience turning the dial.
I mean, that would look dodgy, wouldn't it? But I can't imagine. You can't have a very sophisticated semiotic system just using vibrations in the rectum. I mean, there's a limit to how much...
You sound like you know this for sure.
How much information can you get? It's binary,
Morse code.
A bit like smoke signals.
No, Morse code.
I suppose it is.
Yeah. Could it just be yes or no? Like he's doing the move.
Some of the other ways that people have cheated, they've had somebody standing behind one of the other tables to indicate. And also a Latvian grandmaster, Igors Rausis, was banned for 6 years after being caught looking up moves on a phone he had hidden in a toilet.
Well, that's pretty basic, isn't it? But they do say, I know, what's his name? The Kasparov, the world, still the granddaddy of the whole thing. He says that the best players now are centaurs, man and machine working together. That creates the best results.
Oh, really?
There are machines that will beat any man, but a man and machine working together, God knows how you learn how to work together, but somehow you create this kind of, So I guess that's what the anal beads represent, the interface between man and machine in that respect. Final story, very quickly, from the Daily Star. Very sad, but we finish our period of collective mourning. It seems even our furry friends are feeling the loss. The corgis. This is Leo.
So corgi owners say that their dogs know that the Queen has died as they act differently. Obviously, Queen Elizabeth II had loads of corgis. She loved them. There's a picture of her with a corgi there. And now corgi owners say they know their pets know that the Queen has died. They say they've been curled up in their laps ever since the news broke, which is unusual. I don't know where they used to curl up. Other people say. Someone else says, I must be honest, I've not seen me dog smile since the announcement. #they know.
Dogs often often know their owners have died because they
get hungry,
start eating them.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's true, yeah.
And in some countries,
that much
owners
at least
dogs.
Our Majesty was saved from. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guest headliners. We'll be back tomorrow with Nick Dixon in the hot seat. I don't like the sound of that. Get Lavish Station. That will be at 11 o'clock tomorrow night. I've been Simon Evans. Good night. Good to see you. Goodbye.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis,